approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Trustee Early.
Yes.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Trustee Strock.
Yes.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes, the
Thank
motion
you.
carries. All right, first item of the evening is financial updates. Mr. Green. Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, next item is the resolution 2018-19. Mr. Ann, Steve?
Can you turn on the mic? Yeah.
Gotcha. Good evening, Mayor and trustees. Ross Culbertson with RG & Associates, your consulting town planner. We have a final plat for presentation tonight. This is the Silver Peaks Filing 1, Amendment Number 2, which is final plat, replat for Silver Peaks East. The plat details are as a two-phased 10-block, 191 lots, and 15 open space tracts on 38.5 acres on the northeast corner of Weld County Road 2 and King Street. The plat itself has gone through a development review process. Staff vetted the project for compliance to the Silver Peaks East annexation agreement and Silver Peaks PUD regulations that are on file for the project, and worked with the applicant's engineer to work through drainage issues, street right-of-way designs, and the overall context of the lotting development. We also discussed a little bit more in detail about parks and how that relates to the overall PUD that was approved. I don't know if the packets themselves included the PUD regulations, but the applicant has complied with all requirements with the PUD for street standards, street sections, landscaping, and density requirements for the residential lots proposed. So with that, with a fully vetted construction set, landscape plan, staff finds that the technical requirements have been met and are comply with the PUD requirements. So I can answer any general questions you may have. The applicant is here also to answer any questions.
Trustee Early? Trustee Strock?
We're talking about the water resource agreement right now? Okay.
We're on the
Nothing right now.
Trustee Morris?
Could you comment and explain a little bit more the plans and the designs for along that Frico Canal?
Sure. I could probably defer that to the applicant on the design. It is bifurcated along the channel. There are two right-of-ways. I don't know the street names offhand, that they could probably ask, answer any direct questions on it. Huh?
We can defer it to
Okay.
the applicant.
Other than that, I could lean to the attorney on processing of this or the approval procedures for this, if it's the plat first and then the resolution, or the resolution.
The resolution is really a three-part resolution. It approves the plat, it approves the subdivision improvement agreement, and it approves the water resource credit agreement. So I think the best thing to do before we take up the resolution is to get all your questions answered about those three issues. So particularly, I think on the plat, I don't know if the applicant's intended to make a presentation and sort of outline how many lots you're creating, what it's all about. I think that might be helpful for the board.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Michael Blumenthal. I'm the managing member of Lob LLC, which is the owner of the property. My partner, Harvey Deutsch, is also here, and our engineer, Ryan Eckley from 2N Engineering, Civil Engineering, who did all of the engineering work for the property. So I'm here to answer any questions, or if you'd like me to elaborate on what we've got accomplished here, I'm happy to do it.
If you wouldn't mind elaborating on the plans that you have for the Frico ditch on either side, it looks like some landscaping features. If you could just enlighten us a little bit more to that.
Okay. We have granted easements on 22 feet on each side of the canal for for the most part, maintenance and repair equipment that Frico may want to bring in to maintain and repair their ditch. And it's our district is responsible for taking care of weeds and removing trash and maintaining those easement areas in perpetuity. We're not responsible for once we get inside the ditch, it's a Frico property and their responsibility. So that's taken a long time to negotiate all of these items. We're building a cul-de-sac, a box culvert bridge across the canal to get from the west side of on King Street, the west side of our property to the east. And that's been a major undertaking, as you might imagine, the structural and the wing walls and all of the engineering that went into it. I'm not an engineer, so I wouldn't want to bore you with all the details of that, but that's been approved also. So.
The town staff was concerned a little bit about the ditch and the easement that's being provided to Frico for maintenance along the ditch. And we did require for the issuance of any permits for grading the building that the plat would be changed to include a note that stated that there would be no heavy equipment stored within that easement, there would be no structures placed in that easement, just to try to avoid that easement being used to really include for this heavy maintenance that might be like the plat was. So.
Mr. Chairman, actually, Steve, can you guys use the microphone so we can, that's all right. Go ahead.
And the plat was amended to include that.
Did you have anything else?
Will those easements and the roads or the pathways on those, will they be accessible to the public for walking or walking dogs or jogging or whatever? Do we know about that?
We've requested that Frico allow a trail, a hiker-biker trail along the canal. We have not got a response yet.
Okay. Well, thank you for.
We'd like to see it get
done.
done, but it's basically not our call.
I know.
These ditches have been around for hundreds of years, and they seem to take priority and precedence over, what we might want, what the town may want.
Anything else, Mr. Morris?
That is it, thank
All
you.
right, Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
I just wanted to verify something I saw in the document from staff or from you, Mr. Blumenthal, that before any permits will be given for grading, there has to be an agreement on Weld County Road 2 between Mr. Blumenthal's organization and Walton. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
We are asking that they figure out the cost sharing on certain public improvements to include Wells County Road 2 before we will issue permits. So approval of the plat tonight allows them to continue in those conversations. And I understand that they're well underway.
Cool. I just wanted to verify I was reading that right. That's all I had.
Well, we're asking that Walton post a performance bond for Weld County Road 2 so that the town is protected and the funds are going to be there if it's not built. And we're also negotiating with Walton for our share of our costs.
That's right. I actually forgot about that because that was a last-minute change to the SIA. But we did agree as a town that as long as adequate security was placed, equal to whatever the cost of those improvements were along Weld County Road 2, that we would allow their project to go forward and in a form acceptable to us so that we can ensure that we can call on that if necessary, that project doesn't get timely.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Trustee Doherty?
Looking at their plans, is the road, the road that kind of borders the canal, are those in the easement itself?
The road that borders the canal?
Yeah, so I think from the looks of it, unless I'm reading it wrong. 205. So there's the road Canal West and Canal East. do those encroach at all on the easement, or are those entirely outside the easement?
Yeah, those roads are totally outside the easement that we're granting for the canal.
Because those
Okay.
roads are in dedicated street right-of-way?
Okay. So I was just kind of looking, it gets really narrow on 405 compared to the rest of the region, so I was just kind of curious on, what is that, what is the easement width on those, on each side?
The easement width on each side of the canal,
Yeah,
22 feet each.
it's 22 feet?
Yeah.
He's talking about right of way.
No, I'm talking about the easement.
Our engineer might be more helpful.
Yeah, no worries.
Evening, trustees. My name is Ryan with 2N Civil. So, the 22-foot FRICO right-of-way was determined from the top of the bank of the ditch 22 feet out. So that determines the essential right-of-way of FRICO ditch. Anything between that and the edge of the road right-of-way is just open space. So what you're looking at, that narrow strip there, that's
Just
just
the 22, and then everything else is
that's,
kind of
yeah, that's
additional.
just a open space tract between the FRICO right-of-way and the road right-of-way.
And I believe you said, not you specifically, but it was said earlier that that is up to kind of this area to maintain, not FRICO?
Correct.
Correct? And then I guess, what measures have you guys taken, or is it maybe FRICO's responsibility for any erosion of the ditch that encroaches on the road? I guess I would be concerned, especially with some of the weather happenings that we've all seen recently over the last couple of years. We have an incident of flooding or anything like that that happens down the ditch, although it's probably pretty well controlled, that we don't wash out those roads. And especially because what that would then do is limit access into the neighborhood to just a single access point from each side. So you'd kind of cut off that, and I believe the code requires 2 access points into developments, and what this would do. If there was something that damaged the bridge or anything like that, or even washed out the banks and started to erode the roads out on their side, I guess I'd like to just make sure that that was, has been considered, and is that the responsibility of the district, or is that really the responsibility of FRICO for, I guess, maybe separately the bridge and the road itself?
So Canal East and Canal West both sit above the elevation of the ditch. FRICO gave us their flow rate of the ditch, which was presented to the structural engineer who designed the wing walls and the box culvert. So all that stuff has been taken into consideration to account for possible flooding, I guess you will. There are 2 accesses into this, or 3, I guess, 3 access points. There's one off of King Street, one off Pinnacle Avenue, and then on the east side it ties into Sunrise Drive, which is the High Plains subdivision next door.
So what were the 3?
So King Street, which is right off of County Road 2 there. So if you go to sheet
Yep.
number 2,
Yep.
in the bottom left-hand corner,
Yep.
Gareth Lane ties into King Street. So that's one access.
Okay.
Pinnacle Avenue up kind of in the middle of the north there on Ledge Street ties in. It's on sheet 2 as well. Kind of gives you an overall.
Where does Pinnacle
So
come?
this is the one access. This one right here.
But the only access on that is from King Street, correct? So it's still really only a single, is that not considered a single access?
No,
It's-
because you can go over to Jewel Street and up and around.
Okay,
and
that makes
then-
sense, you can get, okay.
Yeah, and then
that's
on the far east property line where Cody Drive and Sunrise Drive connect, that outlets into the subdivision next
Okay,
door.
so then so for the west, nope.
East
for the
side.
east side, if the bridge, something were to happen to the
Correct.
bridge, it would be only a single, but the other side would still have the 2.
Correct.
Because of the kind of the loop on King Street. Okay, that makes.
But FRICO does take very high precautions, and as far as not letting any stormwater drain into their canal, they They don't want that.
Yeah.
So the chances of that flooding beyond what their normal flow rate is minimal.
So we've been past flooding. What's done for erosion mitigation on the ditches? Just over time, if it starts to encroach on the road,
Mhm.
I guess, I mean, if you guys have a 22 foot at the minimum and it erodes 2 feet over the next 20 years.
Sure.
Are you guys out of compliance with your right-of-way that you've signed with them? Because all of a sudden it eroded 2 feet because of whatever.
The FRICO, the purpose of those 22-foot easements on each side is to allow their equipment to get in and make repairs as needed. So FRICO is not going to allow their ditches to erode.
Okay, that's fair. That's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing.
I did have one more
Go
question.
ahead.
Could you clarify which part is phase 1 and which part is phase 2? I saw that it was in 2 phases, but I couldn't figure out which was first and second.
Phase 1 and Phase 2?
Yeah.
Clarify it. It should show on the,
Phase 1 is Phase 1 is everything west of the canal. So King Street
Okay,
side.
yes, okay.
You know, and it extends over just a little bit to tie in the sanitary sewer, but essentially everything west of the canal is Phase 1, east is Phase 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty clear that there was 2 phases, but I couldn't figure out which was first and second.
All right. Mr. Strock, did you had something else?
I had some questions about the water resource agreement.
okay.
We ready for those now? or-
You want to?
So I think we'll have Steve Jeffers do the introduction on the water resource agreement, and you can ask questions of Steve
Sir,
first.
however you like to do it.
All right. Well, and we'll move on.
We
Do
moved
you
on
have
to the
anything
water
else?
agreement?
Yeah, do you have anything else on that?
Oh, I just wanted to mention as a side note that this development and the engineering and grading plans that have been approved are going to take care of the Berkshire neighbors that in 2015 had the flooding problem in their backyards. So this will solve their problem permanently once the development is completed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, who wants to introduce the water resource? Mr. Jeffers or?
He's gathering papers.
Ah. He was napping back there. I saw him. No, I was just jealous because you were napping and I wasn't. That's.
Good evening. Steve Jeffers. Talk about the Water Resource Credit Agreement. I apologize for my voice tonight. I've had a cold for the last week and I lose my voice every once in a while. We've spent a lot of time, as you know, on the Water Resource Credit Agreement, working with the developers for the past year or so on primarily trying to deal with the methods for delivering water to the town. They're proposing to dedicate water in the Fulton and the Burlington-Wellington systems. We feel fairly comfortable with the yield of those water rights, although they have to go through water court. We've developed a structure for developers to pay the town fees for the town to purchase the augmentation station structures that would be needed to deliver the water back to the river for storage, and then also to reimburse the town directly for use of the United Diversion Structure pipeline. There's then a structure in here at the closing where you would issue 222 TAP certificates in their name. The certificates would be held by the town, though, just so we know where they are at all times. And then they can be redeemed in phases. In essence, it's 80% of them could be redeemed and used within the first, I think there's about a 9-month waiting period, we figure, before they're going to ask for these, and then there's a time period by which that would be available. There's the 20% holdback, but there's also then the ability, normally we hold those back until we get the final decree. And then after that point, we know how much the water rights yielded and whether we need to make adjustments. To accommodate their developer, we've built in instead, there is the 20% holdback, but they can pay a fee to the town that we think is sufficient to cover any likely shortage. so that you can go ahead and issue those or let them redeem them before the decree is entered. If there's a problem, you have that money sitting in your account, and then we go out and purchase additional water or whatever we need to do to correct that. And there's still a further mechanism to adjust if necessary. If we're fortunate enough that we get more water than is needed, you can give that water back to the developers, that excess, or you can purchase it. This agreement, I think, complies with the annexation agreement, water resource requirements, and we support this agreement. And so if you have any questions in particular about it, be happy to answer those if I can.
Trustee Doherty.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
No, thanks for getting all that worked out.
Trustee Morris.
Nothing, thank you.
Trustee Straw.
I have a few questions, if you don't mind, and you did a great job, I think, on all this. It's a pretty complicated scenario. The dry-up covenants, I'm not sure I quite understand that, so could you give me just a little bit of history on that?
Sure. In water court cases, the quantity of water that you get is based upon the historic consumptive use of water on the farms. And on some farm systems, you typically try to get a dry-up covenant from the farmer, which is simply an agreement by them that says they're going to keep the farm, they're going to sell you the water, they're not going to irrigate the farm anymore. That's why it's called a dry-up. There's, when you get those, sometimes there are exceptions. There are certain types of water they can use on the property that doesn't affect the yield of the water rights being transferred. On some systems, you never need to get those because the water systems are short. Sometimes you don't need them because the properties have been developed. There's a hospital, there's a grocery store, there's something else on there, there's houses. You don't even need a dry-up covenant because it's, in essence, dried up. In this instance, the developers have some dry-up covenants associated with the water, but they don't have them on all of the properties. They're purchasing these shares from another owner. That would all occur at the closing with the town. They would close with that seller. They'd close, and then they'd close with us. So in this instance, there are not dry-up covenants on all of the properties, but there are on some of them. And if it's not adequate, that'll wash out in the water court transfer. In other water court cases that we've looked at on this ditch, on the Fulton ditch, that has typically not been a significant problem. And so we feel comfortable with closing the way we have it scheduled, and then sort of deciding at the end of the water court case if there's enough yield. And if that becomes a problem, we'll deal with it in the litigation, but in the end, there'd have to be additional water dedicated if it comes up short.
And then in there somewhere it said something about giving you the locations of any land that is dried up in accordance with this, so we're making that available.
We have that information already to a large extent. I mean, we know where the dry-up covenants are located. Chris Sanchez and BBA has done a historic use analysis at a preliminary level. The developers' attorneys have already prepared a title opinion about the water rights and the shares and where they've been used. We haven't seen that yet. If this agreement is approved, then once the developers are ready to schedule a closing, they have to give us at least 35 days notice, and then we get to see the title opinion, and it can look at that further, and then we prepare a water court application and file that on the day or the day following the closing. So we have some of that information. We'll get more of that information.
Okay, thank you. On page 2, I was kind of looking at the SFEs that they were going to provide and the total number, and kind of when I broke it down, just myself, I came up with about 0.46 on that. And so, as I was asking earlier, how much or what percentage of that SFE do we lose in evaporation and delivery?
Okay, so I'm not sure if your number is correct, but when you're using 0.46, you're saying we're asking them to dedicate to the town 0.46 acre-feet per SFE.
Somewhere
okay, yeah,
close
so
to that.
yeah, so I can't do the percentage in my
No,
head,
no,
but
okay.
but the requirement in the annexation agreement is that they deliver 0.25 acre-feet here in town, Everything above that is for either transit loss, evaporation, or some safety factor because we have to exchange some of the water from the Fort Lupton area up to the United Diversion Structure, and there's going to be some water lost in that transfer.
So that to some extent kind of concerns me because I just took on an average of how much water maybe a family of 4 would use in a year. And it's basically, I'm going to say, a third of an acre foot. So when I did all that, I came up with that 46, and then I started looking at, well, so a third of that, or 33. So there's 13 points in there for evaporation and delivery. And when you say 0.25 per household, then that somewhat concerns me.
Yeah, you're comparing 2 different types of numbers here, though.
Okay.
So your 0.33 acre feet is probably your anticipation of how much they would use in their house.
Exactly.
The 0.25 is how much they would consume. So,
Okay, so the
and we actually use a higher number than 0.33. We use a 0.6 or a 0.5 or something like that in a safety factor. But then we calculate in your code, or at least the annexation agreement for the subdivision, this property uses I think it probably was a 0.5 or a 0.6 acre foot of demand and 0.25 acre feet of consumptive use.
Okay.
So they have to replace the consumptive use.
Okay.
What we're doing is we're going to plug this water into the town's existing augmentation plan as additional replacement water. We're not proposing to increase pumping under that plan. We're not going to amend that plan. We think there's some excess pumping under the plan already. And this is a way for us to bring just more local sources of replacement water that are renewable into that plan. Yeah, but we think that it's going to be adequate.
I know you've explained that to me before.
No, that's all right, but we think it's adequate to replace the depletions, which is what they need to do, not how much they're going to drink or put on their lawns, but just what's consumed.
The rest of it's runoff, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. Okay, next question would be on, basically you have a page, page 7, that has the dedication list for all the certificates of the stocks and when they can go out, et cetera, et cetera. But I was kind of concerned, and maybe don't understand this either. On page 11, 7.3, it says that these water rights or these shares could also be used in other places in town, and not specifically. So it seemed like it was counter.
Okay, well, that's actually a provision there in 7.4, I think, maybe, 7.3. That's for the benefit of the town. That has nothing to do with the developer's right to build homes. Okay? The developer's right to build homes is just in paragraph 6 and other provisions here. These certificates are absolutely limited to their subdivision. The water rights that they're dedicated to the town may be used by the town in the town's water rights system. You don't have to say, well, wait a second, we can't use this water today because there's not enough houses at Silver Peaks East. You can use it for any way in your system you want to, but you're promising the developer that you have enough water by accepting this, that you will serve them. Okay? But when if we were to go to water court, and at the time we drafted this, we anticipated we were going to go to water court and do a full-blown augmentation plan that's based upon this little bit of water, or amend the existing plan. The existing plan for Silver Peaks, using the Bell Mountain water, has that same language. We quantified the amount of water they needed to give you and the amount of water you were going to pump based upon the anticipated demand of Silver Peaks, in this case, Silver Peaks East. They dedicated that amount of water. We went to court, and we didn't want to give you a decree that was limited to just one piece of property. So the application in that case said that the amount of water was based upon this demand, but the town can use the water anywhere in its system. And you are right now. You're using the Bell Mountain water for the whole town. And we wanted the flexibility with their water to just do the same thing, say we just roll it into the town's augmentation plan and you can use it anywhere in the town.
That makes sense. Let's see, my last question was on page 12, actually where it said if you needed to buy additional shares at a price of $20,000 an acre foot, do you feel comfortable with that figure? I guess you do.
That's actually an agreement between the town and the developers saying that if you get through water court and there's extra water left over, let's say we anticipated we needed 77 acre feet, but we decide at the end, or the court decides at the end, there's 90 acre feet of firm yield, more than they needed to give you.
Okay.
That says that you either give that extra water back to them, or you can purchase it from them at that price.
Oh, all right.
It's a little bit of a high price in terms of just water, but that water will have been changed to municipal use, usable in your system, and we agreed amongst us that we think that's a fair price, and I do.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. That's all I have.
All right. Trustee Early?
Nothing, thanks.
And I have nothing. Thank you very much. Anything else to add?
No, thank you.
All right. Okay, subdivision improvement agreement.
My pen is dedicated to the conference room.
All right, so the third leg of the triangle in this resolution is approval of the subdivision improvement agreement. As you know, the purpose of that agreement is to ensure that we all understand what the public improvements are, both on-site and off-site, for which this developer will be responsible, and that we have a process in place whereby the town oversees the construction of those public improvements, eventually accepts those public improvements, and requires that there is security provided to the town to ensure both that the public improvements are timely and properly constructed, and that warranty obligations are in fact satisfied. So it's sort of our standard subdivision improvement agreement with a few little tweaks. I think we've already talked about a couple of them related to the ditch and to the obligations related to off-site improvements. Frankly, the off-site improvements at Silver Peaks East are pretty much governed by the annexation agreement itself, which talks about timing certain off-site improvements and when those come in. We've gone a little bit step further here in requiring them to actually come to some agreement with the other property owner within Silver Peak as to what their cost sharing obligations would be, and that's really to try to meet the town's goals, especially as it relates to Well County Road 2 and their desire to get that project built.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Trustee Morris?
Nope.
Trustee Straw?
Well, I guess my mind fails me a little bit here. We did we do a special district for this area? Has that been done yet?
Yeah, I think that was the last board meeting, or?
Was it the last meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Trustee Early?
Nothing, thanks.
Trustee Doherty?
I have nothing, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman?
My question already was answered.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, let's open it up for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2018-19, a resolution of the Board of Trustees for the Town of Lockwood approving parens 1, the Silver Peaks filing number 1, amendment number 2, plat, Silver Peaks East. Parens 2, the water resource credit agreement between the Town of Lockwood and LOB LLC. And parens 3, the subdivision improvement agreement, Silver Peaks filing number 1, amendment 2, plat, Silver Peaks East.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Strack.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Loughran.
Yes.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Trustee Early.
Yes.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes, and motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. And next item, moving on to public hearing for approved Curitan Midstream Oil and Gas Pipeline. So, let's see, the time is now 7:06, and we'll open up the public hearing. Go ahead.
All right, so we've published notice of the public hearing on the special use permit that Curitan Midstream Oil and Gas Company has made
Gentlemen, can you
application for.
keep the noise down, please? Gentlemen, can you please step outside?
No.
Excuse me, gentlemen, can you please step outside? You're a little bit loud, thank you. Continue.
I lost my train of thought, but anyway, because public hearing's been noticed, we're really not ready to move forward on this tonight, but we want to open it up and continue it to a date certain, and the applicant has asked that this be continued to October 16th meeting. So that's what we really need to do, is open up the public hearing and continue it to October 16th.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Pretend Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Early.
Yes.
Trustee Strong.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes, and motion carries. And we'll close the public hearing at 7:07. All right, next item is the professional services agreement with Civil Resources. Mr. Beback.
Trustee, you have a recommendation to approve contract to Civil Resources. As you know, Tom reached out to three firms, two firms, reached out to some firms with to request the services for design to rebuild the inspection of the area. Two firms responded, RJ Consulting and Civil Resources LLC. The town met with going through those teams, with those companies, and myself, Steve, and Steve Jeffers, along with Chris Sanchez, on this small committee, we interviewed those consultants and felt like Civil Resources was the better firm to meet the requirements for this first project. So based on that, that's the recommendation to approve the contract for phase one of rebuild and construction of the Civil Resources LLC.
Okay. All right, questions, comments? Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
Are the design services going to include park space and that kind of stuff around it, or just the actual physical reservoir?
This is to look at the physical footprint of both the rebuild and then the expansion potential of looking at a potential for a park area on a space. And Brad Hagan from Civil Resources is here tonight too, if you like to meet Brad. I would just, for the board's information, we did submit an RFP to a third engineering firm. They decided not to submit a proposal, so that's why we interviewed the two.
That's all I had.
All right, Trustee Doherty.
I have nothing.
Trustee Early. Trustee Strong.
I'm all for moving ahead and figuring that out. You know, we had this one document here a while back, I finally found it, where it said, actually it says, as part of this infrastructure, the district intends to construct a dam that holds approximately 100 acre-feet of accretion water northeast of Hudson at the intersection of County Road 12 and State Highway 52. And so I've asked that question before. Has anybody addressed that? Because this is that document, I can tell you. It's the amended and restated intergovernmental agreement for the storm drainage thing that we have. And it basically says that we will help rebuild that, but it states it at a location that obviously is not correct. And no one's ever said anything about that. And it also in this document says that if we're responsible for maintenance and stuff out there, but if FRICO, if because of their neglect or something, which has obviously happened, then they would pay for that too. So I just wonder if anybody had ever really addressed that.
I guess I need to look at that agreement, but Chris, are you familiar with that?
This is Chris Sanchez with BBA. I too am not familiar specifically with that agreement, but from what you're describing in terms of the quantities of the reservoir capacity, my best guess is that would be the same Lake Henry, and that you're right that it's an erroneous location, but I would need to look into that to see it. I am not familiar with any other obligation for that type of reservoir.
I don't know that it would change my opinion about doing this at all, but yeah, I'd like to find out, because I think some of that responsibility out there should be shared. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Trustee Morris.
I have nothing.
And I have
I'll make a motion to approve a professional services agreement with Civil Resources for phase one of the Lake Henry rebuild and expansion project for design services in an amount not to exceed $75,000.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Early.
Yes.
Trustee Stark.
Yes.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes, and motion carries. Next item is the professional service agreement for on-call engineering. Mr. Feedback once again.
I did, they all have the, I put the memo on there.
Didn't make it before you is a recommendation to approve on-call engineering services contract with Inertia Consulting. Just a little bit background on this. Currently, as you know, JVA is a town engineer. They, JVA provides a slew of services for the town, including construction observation. And that's what they're doing for us currently in Bella Vista and Blue Lakes and everywhere else. And based on several issues and just their performance in the field, I decided we're in a good position to look to a different contractor to provide that service for the town. I think there are other consulting firms out there that can do a better job with construction observation specifically. So I intend to prep an RFP for that work, but in interim, I want to install, or I'm asking for approval for an on-call engineering services contract with Inertia.
Okay. All right. Questions, comments from Trustee Morris?
No comments or questions?
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren?
I don't have anything.
Trustee Doherty?
So you said your plan is to still go out after RFP for it. So I guess is it staff's thought that things are so dire right now that we need to switch in the interim?
This week, yeah. We haven't had that meeting just yet with them. The plan is to stop them from doing construction observation and utilize somebody else in the interim, put out an RFP for a different consultant to provide that service for us. That answers the question.
Okay. Trustee Early?
Nothing.
Trustee Strock?
Nothing.
All right. Entertain a motion.
Excuse me. I'll make a motion to approve professional services agreement for on-call engineering services with Inertia Engineering.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Early.
Yes.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Stark.
Yes.
Trustee Doherty.
Abstain?
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes, and motion carries. All right, next item is Resolution 2018-20, yeah.
All right,
That's the one.
Resolution 2018-20 is brought to you this evening as a result of a conversation we had at the last board meeting.
Concerning Amendment 74, which is a proposal that is on the citizen initiative on the ballot, or the statewide ballot this coming November. Sent you a bunch of materials. It's in your packet from the Colorado Municipal League. I can indicate to you that most, not many jurisdictions in Colorado are adopting similar resolutions here in the next weeks, coming weeks. Amendment 74, in essence, would require government to pay compensation anytime they adopt a law or regulation that can be shown to in any way reduce fair market value on somebody's property. And so it takes takings law and basically stretches it across so many potential issues. It would cripple government and its ability to move forward. And so you indicated that you had looked at this issue, I think, at your last board meeting, and it seemed to be that there was a decent consensus that this was something that you were interested in opposing by adopting the resolution. So we brought that forward to you tonight.
Okay. Trustee Early? Questions, comments?
Yes, comment. Ballot issues to me are personal and private.
Well, essentially, we're just looking to see if the Board of Trustees is something we want to push forward. So, okay. Trustee Strock?
I would echo exactly what she said.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trustee Morris?
I would comment on that this is something that's been tried in another state, in a couple other states, from the literature, Washington and Oregon. And Oregon, they had really bad experience with it, and then they put it back on the ballot a few years later, and then did away with the substantial parts of it, or most of it, to undo the damage that it did cause. So that's my comment.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
I would just, in response to Trustee Early's comment, agree that how a person personally votes on any ballot issue is personal to them. And I think the importance of taking a position on stuff, on issues like this one particularly, is it lets the public know the type of effect this will have on their local government that they might not otherwise know unless their local government takes a position on it. So I feel like while not every issue is appropriate for the board to take a position on, I think this is one, because as Maureen said and as all the literature says, this will have a crippling effect on local government, on state government, and it's just something I feel like this board needs to take a position on, and that's all I have.
Trustee Doherty?
I agree. I think the board needs to take a position on this. I think maybe in spirit it has a good intent, but I think it's way too broad. Especially with us working on County Road 2 right now and expanding County Road 2, if this goes forward, we could turn around and it basically could put a stop on County Road 2 entirely. Because we potentially could have to pay everybody who has a house on County Road 2 X amount of dollars because it has an impact on their house. So I guess my thought with this in general is, as a representative of the town and the town of Lochbuie as a governing body, that I think it's in the best interest of the town of Lochbuie as a governing body to take an action or a resolution opposed to this, regardless of how individuals may end up voting. And I guess my thought with that is, just because from a town representative standpoint, we vote one way, I don't think that necessarily is the stance that you may vote on that particular issue when it comes time in November. But with that said, I'm absolutely in support of a resolution to oppose this.
Okay. And as Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren, as well as Trustee Doherty said quite succinctly, I agree. I think this is something we should push forward with. So with that, I will open the floor to a motion.
The motion to approve resolution number 2018-20, resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lochbuie, Colorado, taking a position and opposing Amendment 74 on the November 2018 statewide ballot.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Strock.
Yes.
Trustee Early.
Abstain.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes, and motion carries. Next item is the discussion of a resolution opposing Proposition 112.
So Proposition 112 is also on the ballot in November. Proposition 112 basically puts in place a statewide mandate on setbacks on oil and gas and fracking. And sort of regardless of how you feel about fracking and oil and gas development, municipalities are coming out in opposition to Proposition 112 just because local land use control is considered to be somewhat eroded by the state further involving themselves and having statewide regulations that further limit the ability of local governments to make a decision for themselves as to what's good for them. I mean, in essence, Proposition 112, because it puts a 2,500 foot setback from structures, including playgrounds and that kind of thing, is really considered to basically be a total ban on fracking, which may be fine, but I think the issue that CML is asking local governments to think about is, should that be a local government decision and not a statewide decision? And so it's really about eroding home rule control and local government control that many jurisdictions have come out in opposition to Proposition 112. I don't have a resolution in front of me tonight on this because I didn't have any clear direction from you about how you felt on that last board meeting. This is really on here now for discussion and for the question, do you want to even adopt a resolution? Frankly, home rule jurisdictions are probably taking a bigger lead in coming out in opposition, and again, mostly because of the erosion of home rule authority as opposed to anything about how you feel or don't feel about a 2,500-foot setback for oil and gas development. So my question to you is, do you want me to bring a resolution forward on October 2nd for you to consider?
Trustee Doherty.
Well, I guess I have a question then about that. From my understanding, municipalities, regardless if we're home rule or not, have almost no authority whatsoever to begin with. I mean, we can.
I don't disagree. Oil and gas regulation as a general rule has been a matter of statewide concern, but there are some areas where you can, but the statewide setback is a lot less than right now than 500 feet. 2,500 feet will essentially eliminate the ability to frack. And that, I think, is the bigger concern, is that there are some communities in Will County and otherwise that actually really do rely on the revenue that they get from these types of activities. And so what the state, if Prop 112 passes, those local jurisdictions that might think it's in their best interest to allow some form of fracking would not be allowed to do that. And I think that that's where it's the argument is that it crosses over the lines and takes away from local government the decision to decide what's best for their community.
I guess my only thought on that is I don't know if it just moves the line. I mean, physically moves the line. I mean, the state already dictates everything. Right, but the state already dictates everything. I mean, they can come in and don't have to agree to anything that we want as long as they hold to the state statutes, and we have no say whatsoever. So I think really it just moves the line. I don't think it really is changing anything. I guess at the end I can see where long term the town may take a position where we would like to have oil and gas that comes in closer to that 25, and so we would like to have that ability to regulate that internally. So I guess I'm kind of mixed on it from a town trustee standpoint. Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
I would favor doing a resolution on this one for the reasons Maureen stated. I think it's allowing the state to intervene too much in what should be a municipal affair. And having said that, I agree that the current state of state law is a mess, and I hope it changes. I just don't think this is the right change. I think this change steps all over municipal authority or what could be municipal authority in the future. And I also think it could have a dramatic impact on the number of people in our community that work in oil and gas. So I would favor a resolution on this at our next meeting.
All right. Trustee Morris?
I agree with the aforementioned comments and would also favor doing the resolution.
All right. Trustee Strock?
Well, first of all, I don't think the state should be telling us what we can do, and they're going to continue to tell us that. I think 2,500 feet is fine in the sense that, you know, do we really have any studies that tell us what these are doing to our health? If you drive by the operation in Wuttenberg, I don't care what time of the day, there's a black cloud that just keeps coming out of that thing. And, you know, to live close to that is probably a hazard for our health. Just with what Sam is doing over here, I mean, I've noticed the air filter in my house is 3 times as dirty as it's ever been before. And maybe it's just because it's a dry, dusty season. I really feel bad. You know, we need the revenue. The schools need the revenue, et cetera, et cetera. You know, so I'm kind of on the fence on this thing. And so with that being said, maybe better not if we didn't even address the thing and just kind of let it go by the side. Thank you.
Trustee Early?
I don't have anything.
Just for the, just for giggles, the current restrictions as of 2018 specify that wells must be 1,000 feet from high occupancy buildings such as schools and hospitals, 500 feet from occupied buildings such as homes, and 350 feet from outdoor areas like playgrounds. So that's a huge change to the 2,500 feet. And I still struggle with, I've talked to some of my friends who are in oil and gas, and my belief is, wait a minute, you guys can actually vertically or drill at an angle for half a mile, but 2,500 feet is going to make that much of a difference. I struggle with that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to complete my incomplete thought that I had. So I think we've had a lot of people come into town when we've had grilling nearby and voice concerns. But I also definitely understand that the town has a lot of employees that work in oil and gas. So honestly, I think the town's probably relatively split on this issue. And that's actually why I don't think we should take a stance on it at all, is because of that. I think we've had a lot of public input when we've had grilling nearby that have expressed their concerns. But also completely understand that we have a significant population in this town that works in oil and gas as well that has a huge impact with this. So I don't think it's a good move for the town in general to take any stance on this.
Okay. All right. So the question is, do we want Maureen to bring something forward next week? Yes or no? Trustee Early?
No.
Trustee Strock?
No.
Trustee Morris?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren?
Yes.
Trustee Doherty?
No. Where's David at?
And I say no. The noes have it. So, all right.
Well,
It saved
never
us
mind,
some
I
money
changed.
too. We didn't have to pay you to draft it. Okay, staff reports. Chief?
I really don't have anything to add.
I like to hear that. Okay, you're done, right?
Just the search, we still continue searching for document.
Is it on?
We just had a search. It is.
Okay.
We just had a search meeting Sunday with 6 more dogs. We searched all I have, and I think we're vacant land area in and around this part of town anyway. So we have no reason to believe that she's going to be found in any of those places, but we don't know where she is.
Anyone have anything for Chief?
On the fireworks Saturday night, when they blocked off all the roads for an hour and a half, did it take that long to get the fire out?
I couldn't tell you.
Was it our cops that,
Yes.
there was our cop at Bonanza and Willow, but I didn't know about if it was highway patrol out on 2, or was it all our cops?
No, it's probably, go ahead.
We had an officer at the highway, getting on the highway. There was an officer, I believe, probably, you were at Bonanza in Willow in front of your house. That was Greg Hart. And then there were officers up at the highway and then down further in Berkshire directing traffic around there. And we stayed there until the fire department left. So if it took an hour and a half, it was an hour and a half, so.
Thank you.
Anyone have anything else for Chief? No? Okay. Thank you, Chief. All right, Mr. Rebeck.
Thank you. Good evening. Good month of August, and stay busy, and things are going well in the department, full staffing. Nothing out of the ordinary to report, except we completed the cave sealing and slurry stuff, and we completed asphalt patching that was planned for this year, as well as concrete repairs that we planned also to do. Those were done. You might know that the flashing light in Bonanza, South Bonanza was struck, so, and we took that in. It's sitting in our shop, and I'm looking at different options, what to replace that with. Is it a same exact post? There's smaller options, lighter weight options that are out there. And I'll bring a couple options maybe with the board so you can see what I'm thinking about. There's been some interest on installing lighted signals at the new school as well, so maybe do that at the same time. We can have a dual. There's LED technology out there. It's pretty nifty.
Okay.
Aside from that, just nothing else.
All right. Any questions, comments for Mr. Beback? Go ahead.
It shows that we've ordered Ice Slicer. Have we looked at alternatives to that that are a bit less corrosive to our roads and to our equipment?
That is the less corrosive alternative, as far as I know. I mean, it's less corrosive than salt. And you made a comment about us using mac chloride, because we were trying that out on a couple intersections last winter. So I still have a half a tank of that stuff from last season. It's about 250 gallons. So I'm holding back based on your comment, actually, just because of rust concerns and stuff like that. So what the intention is this winter is just use Ice Slicer, which is rock mixed in with natural occurring salts.
Okay.
There's 8% salt in there, I think. 8 or 6 right, yeah.
I'd still be curious to see what we might be able to
Yep.
do with it's actually propylene glycol, which is what they spray on planes, and so they don't typically like those rusting. So I think that'd be something that it's actually non-corrosive entirely. So I think that'd be something good to look at. I don't actually think very many municipalities, if any, use it currently, and I'm not sure why that would be, but I know they use it on planes specifically because of that reason. It's entirely non-corrosive, and I think if you look at how much damage these type of things do to our roads, due to the vehicles that drive on our roads, and due to our maintenance vehicles that we use to put them on, I think there's significant cost in that's not really taken into consideration. So I understand for this year it's kind of done, but I think long-term we should look into.
I will look at that option. And I spoke with Brighton, a couple of different municipalities, and you're right. At least the folks who I spoke with, they're not using glycol.
You could be the first.
Could be the first, or it could be the cost of it, actually. Just the
Fair enough.
cost of it. But I'm not saying no, yeah. It might be worthwhile, especially because of how many intersections we have. It's not blocked. So and that's what the intention was with mac chloride, is just to have a small tote just for 5 or 6 intersections, essentially. Good.
Excellent. That's all I have.
All right. Do you have anyone have anything? Go ahead.
I think the town's looking really nice, and the crosswalks look good, and I've actually heard that fewer people run those stop signs when the crosswalks are marked like
I've
that.
heard of 2 things.
That's cool, thanks.
All right. Thank you, David. Mr. Ramey, welcome.
How are you?
Wonderful.
So reason why they don't use glycol? It's not allowed to be discharged to surface waters. So it's an alcohol, so it's high in BOD. So that's why they do at the airport, they actually treat it before they discharge it. That's why, just so you know, I worked in public works for a long time.
That's good to know.
So nothing really other than a construction project going on. The water plant, we just got a couple of bugs here and there working out, but I mean, if you just look at the tables, you can see we're in a dry year because our infiltration is less. Our flows have come up because of the housing starts, but the amount of groundwater that we're seeing through the plant and at the plant are quite a bit low due to the drought or just lack of water, especially for August. It was a hot month in August because if you look at how much water we produced compared to last year, it was 4 million gallons. So that works out to more than 133,000 gallons a day extra this August than last August. So more homes, more turf, new landscaping, things like that. Anything down to wastewater plants, just been, shutting power off temporary to wire something in so that the contractors can get doing that kind of stuff. I am happy to say that of all our CIP projects, they're either completed or along most of the way. So least we got something done this year.
Under budget?
Under budget for what we're involved with, yeah.
You don't see any qualifier.
Yeah, well, I'm not a dummy. I might look like it. But other than that, everything's going good.
Questions? Go ahead. Questions, Rob?
No, I'm sorry. I see you're taking samples upstream and downstream.
Uh-huh.
And so that's similar to that Reg 85?
That's exactly why we do it. And as you can see, we're doing awesome, right? I mean, the nutrient load that goes to Milton from us, we do not contribute to any of the eutrophication. Only because our phosphorus levels we keep down around 0.2, 0.4, you know, in between that range. And BB draw itself upstream is about 0.15. So you see a slight increase during non-irrigation periods. But the target number that we have with FRICO is 1 milligram per liter. So we stay way underneath that. And that's just so Milton, you know, it's already a pea green soup. And, you know, the phosphorus is what causes the algae blooms, right? It's a phosphorus limited reservoir, not a nitrogen limited. So, but even that.
Nitrogen.
Yeah, well, nitrogen, there's so much in the air. There's the reservoirs in Colorado are really phosphorus limited. If you remove the phosphorus, you won't have eutrophication.
Anything else?
You're welcome. Anything else?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Samantha Byrne.
Thank you. Just one quick thing, and I apologize. I just noticed there's a typo on my report. It should say wastewater treatment plant improvement project, not water treatment plant. The wastewater, as Lane said, the wastewater treatment plant project is moving along. We did run into an issue. I think if we learned anything this year, we never know what to expect underground. There was an issue with the electric lines that were running into the headworks. They go down to a level that we can construct at, but then they go back up, and they're in the way. So they have to find a solution to reroute the electric so we could keep the wastewater treatment plant running while we're doing this project. It was very, very expensive to do this. As you can see, we're hitting the contingency at $76,000. That actually is down. We thought it was going to come in closer to $100,000 and cut it in half. So that, first of all, the mulch found savings there, and the electrician found savings to bring it down to 76. But then the good news is that we went back and revised some of the structural plans for the building, downsized it, reworked where some of the equipment was. Everything is totally functional. Everyone has bought in on it. Ramey's bought in on it. It works for them. And we were able to save $43,000 from the project, so that we're only hitting the contingency at about $33,000. So that's really, really positive news, but just to keep you guys all in the loop about what's going on there, but otherwise, business as usual. Any questions?
Questions?
Yeah, not about that. Since you are already communicating with Hudson about library services, is there any way you could check with them about finding out how we might get some representation from our town on the library board?
That's something we'll be talking about at our work session, and that's something that I think is really important.
Yeah, because
It's just so you all know, I don't know if you know how that works. The Hudson Town Council appoints every single one of those board members on the library board.
And right now, they're all from
Yes,
Hudson,
they're all from Hudson.
even though
And-
approximately 60% of the population is here.
You sound, I think you're bugging my office.
Yeah.
I've had
Or you're
some of
talking
these-
to the same person I am, is probably what it is.
Some of these same conversations floating in my head, and I go in and yell at Steve about it.
Okay, anything else?
We'll talk about it.
Anything else? Okay. All right, thank you. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor and Board. So just a reminder, we do have our sewer board meeting Thursday evening, and you did get a packet for that, and that's, we're requesting transfer of the PIF fees that are currently held in escrow to help us with the CIP projects at the wastewater treatment plant. And then I have attached for board consideration a letter to the City of Brighton requesting participation in the I-76 improvement project, both the traffic control and the lane widening. And Jeff Green helped do the calculation based on traffic studies prepared by the developers along County Road 2 in Brighton. And so those numbers and the Brighton's prorated share of that cost is in the letter you have there. If the board's interested in signing that, and we could send it, but I would request that you, do we have a, Town Clerk Linda, do we have a copy of this letter we could have board members sign tonight? We could print one. So if you want to send this, you can give us direction, and then at least if you sign tonight, those who can. So we do have the final plat and construction drawings for Lock Buoy Station and Lock Buoy Center. That's both the residential piece and the commercial piece. And we did have a pre-application meeting with 7-Eleven this past week. So they're anticipating submitting their site plan to move forward with that project.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
Questions? Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, can we talk about this letter a little bit? First of all, I was wondering, is this any different than them saying that we're using the intersection at 50th and Bridge, and that they want us to help with that?
Well, it's similar, but we do have some commitment at 50th and Bridge on the Silver Peaks annexation agreement. There's a provision for a share of costs on that intersection.
On Bridge or Bromwell?
No, 50th and 2. I'm sorry.
2.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was my initial thought. I mean, initially I thought this was a great idea, and I certainly believe that they should help pay for that. And then I started thinking, well, we use some of their intersections, and maybe they haven't sent us a letter like this. And then I started wondering, is there any way that we could apply for TIP funds for this reason?
We have applied for the TIP. This is in the TIP system right now.
Well, I was thinking additionally, so as we go to Wells County, and if there's money laying on the table possibly, we could ask for this amount, kind of for them, I guess, or go to ADCOG and see if they would, I don't know how receptive they would be.
Okay, so we're doing both applications through ADCOG and the Southwest Weld Forum for funding for this project, for the intersection improvements at I-76. So this is the project we're looking for funding.
I thought our improvement were the off-ramps and the on-ramps.
No, this is signalization and the improvements at the ramp.
So part of those funds will be going for our...
That's correct. That's the project that we've submitted for funding through both of the Dr. Cog subgroups.
I thought it was more specific to the interstate than that.
Well, it is. This is the interstate, but for signalization on both of the off-ramps, and then to make a widening of the off-ramp so we can have a right turn lane in the off-ramps.
But that's not, this is for the roundabout.
No, this is for the intersection. This is for that I-76 inbound.
Oh, okay. All right. Big question, but thank you.
Anyone have anything else? Go ahead.
Did we even consider a roundabout or a double roundabout because of the business park coming up to the one stop sign, and then just 100 feet up is the exit off of 76 to come back into town? I mean, if you put one signal there, you still have two streets and the trucks coming in. That's still going to be a mess. And I don't know, I haven't been a big fan of roundabouts, but I'm thinking maybe you're going to have to do that, or at least look at it if it makes more sense, and then you're not slowing down traffic.
It could. I would say that the cost of our roundabout improvement right now at the I-76 frontage is $1.5 million compared to a signalization. You know, the cost is a lot more.
Well, that is part of Brighton. I mean, that's part of theirs. The business park is theirs.
The business park is there, and that's, in fact, they're shown here in terms of a prorated share.
Well, I just think
Yeah.
it's not gonna
And
fix the problem.
CDOT doesn't have any money to fund, so we're looking at local resources.
I'm
Except
just
if we're-
saying it makes more
Yeah.
sense.
I
It
mean,
makes
we,
more sense, but it's gonna cost more dollars.
A lot more dollars.
So we gotta get another grant.
It's a lot more
it's
than
tough,
that.
and there's the competition for, so just for an example of the AdCog meetings we have been attending, there are groups from the Boulder, Broomfield, which is in a different COG group, applying for funding support from the Adams Group. The Denver group has been at their meeting asking for support for one of their projects. So there's not enough funding even in that group to go around to the people trying to get funding.
Okay,
So,
go ahead.
yeah, I guess if CDOT doesn't have enough money, I think it'd be really, I actually think it'd be a lot cheaper to put a median there, to keep them from turning, from the construction traffic or the traffic there from turning
Okay,
left.
so without designing the road tonight, do you want to
Yeah.
send this letter to Brighton and ask for a prorated funding share? If not, or if you want to do something different, I guess that's the
Well,
question.
I guess we're signing a letter to receive funds for something that I don't know is quite the right number.
Okay.
If we haven't looked at it yet.
So what's your suggestion?
I think we need to look at other alternatives. I think putting a traffic light at both of those locations is a terrible idea.
Is that a consensus?
No.
I would send a letter.
Send the letter.
I'd like to sign it.
Okay, I would too. So, send the letter. I think you got the majority. As it is.
So, so we've been going through the, based on our meetings with CDOT and our traffic engineer, and so this solution was what was kind of discussed with CDOT a year ago, and this is what CDOT had recommended for us to pursue. So if we want to change the scope of this, then we need to really revise what we're doing with both the Adams County and the Weld County Forum.
Well, did they know the business park was going in when they did their first assessment?
Yes.
Got a majority, say send the letter. So, move forward.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's all.
Anyone have anything else? Okay. Go ahead.
We're looking for your signatures on the letter, because of the way
Correct.
that carries anything. I guess if we can at least just get a majority, so we can get that printed off. Right, pretty well read that.
Okay.
It'd probably look better for the town if we didn't have names without signatures, so.
Just rubber
No,
stamp.
I'm being serious.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to be a hindrance
Yeah,
where
no.
they get a letter and
Yeah, we're gonna sign it.
not, well, you're not going to dictate what I sign, Mike.
No, I'm not. You don't have the majority, but the majority will.
But what I'm saying is.
He's telling when to take the name
To
off
take
the
the
letter.
name out, because I
Oh,
think it'd
take
look
both.
better for the town if you didn't have a couple blanks on there.
Well, then specifically say that, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, you can't understand.
We're gonna have fun. Anything else, Maureen?
No, I just wanted to follow up. I feel like bad news bear here, but I think at the last board meeting, Ms. Miller indicated that maybe there was going to be a settlement agreement on Lake Henry funds that was going to be favorable to the town, and then not even 24 hours later, reversed course. And I just wanted to let you know that unfortunately, that reversal is what's really holding here, and we haven't actually seen a settlement agreement yet, but Steve Dawes was our litigation counsel. He's working with Oil and Gas Council to draft a settlement agreement to make sure that all claims are released against us in exchange for us paying into those funds. So that's unfortunately how that's going to go down.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I was pessimistically optimistic when she said that. All right, Mayor and Trustee comments. Trustee Doherty.
I guess I'd just probably reiterate that I think putting a traffic light right after a roundabout's a terrible idea. That's all that I have.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Lofgren.
All I had is, I had a booth at Fall Fest this weekend, and I had a lot of people actually come up and talk to me about live streaming, saying they were thankful for the service, and that the one thing we need to do to make sure it's more effective for the people in town that are watching is make sure our sound is working, which is why I've been harping on microphones tonight, because I had a couple people say when they've tried it, the sound cuts out and they stop watching. So if we're gonna have the service, I want to make sure that our sound is working effectively on it. And that's all I have.
Okay. Trustee Morris?
Nothing.
Trustee Strock?
These are mayor and trustee comments?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to remind the board that at the end of the year, the LGI ditch is coming up once again, so that we don't forget it. I also asked, I haven't really heard any follow-up about a meeting with Safe Build to discuss the building code. Dave Ott and I went to a CML conference on water. I kind of expected to learn where to buy it and a couple tricks like that, and it really wasn't a conference like that. And what it really boiled down to was that, you know, in the next 20 years, our population is going to double, or let's say 30 years, by 2050, our population is going to double. And the earth is just so much water. So in the next 30 years, we're all going to have to get along with half as much water as we have now. And in order to do that, I feel that out of this, we kind of discuss it. It's similar to recycling. You know, 30 years ago, you threw something out your window and you didn't give it a second thought. You know, but we started teaching the children to pick up after themselves. And this is what is going to be necessary with water conservation in the future, is to teach the children to do that. And I think there may be some European countries and stuff that are quite a bit farther ahead of this than we are. But I think that's really important. Samantha and Steve and I talked to AAA with Dr. Codd a couple weeks ago about our aging population. Here again, in 20 years, there will be twice as many people that are 65 years and older than young people. It's kind of a staggering fact when you start thinking about it. One good thing about that is that the older population spends a little more money. So that being said, it's kind of good for our economy. Tomorrow we're going to meet with Weld County's AAA agency and talk to them about how we can maybe prepare ourselves or our citizens for the future. One suggestion, what Dr. Codd will do will be a survey of all the players, which would be the fire and the police and paramedics and different people, to find out what services are actually needed in the future. One thing that did come up was that maybe at this time we might be redesigning our website. And with that being said, maybe we could work out an agreement with, say, the senior center to let them do some of those services that are needed, as far as telling people where they can get help and stuff like that. So it's something to think about. That's really all I have, other than, you know, I started thinking about this. I think this board as a whole somewhat used poor judgment with the fireworks last weekend. And I only say that because there are statewide bans. We've had 50, 60 days of 90-degree weather. And many, many people just said it looked awful dry. So I don't really blame anybody other than myself, I guess, or the board. So maybe we should have said something about it. So that's all. Thank you.
Trustee Early?
I was just really disappointed that only board members and staff showed up to the library meeting in Hudson. No residents at all. That was kind of sad, because people are telling us they want this. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And I have a couple of things. One, we went really fast on mayor and trustee comments tonight, which is quite nice. And I'm going to address that, because that's one of the things that I've always, has always been kind of my pet peeve. Mayor and trustee comments should not run for an hour, 45 minutes. When we do mayor and trustee comments, the one issue that I have, or the one thing that really stands out for me, is we bring things forward, i.e. someone gets a phone call about someone doing something illegal, maybe speeding or going through stop signs or something else. Our job is not to be police officers. Our job is to report those, or tell the individual to report it. Tell them to call the police department. Make them, don't let them pass the buck. That's the reality of it. They pass the buck a lot of times. Or, you know, I'm not going to pick directly, but, you know, we've had other things where someone called in about parks or about so many different things, emails. Forward those to the staff. Get those to staff. If you bring it in here, you have waited 2 to 3 weeks, and you're not doing the constituents any good, you're not doing the staff any good. You're waiting 2 to 3 weeks before they get that information, and they hear the complaint or the issue for the first time. And I think when we bring those things in here, and we wait to bring them in, we lose time. And it makes us look bad. It makes staff look bad. And then we bring it in here and we say, oh, staff, here, handle this. And we already have people out there saying, well, they're not even taking care of things. It needs to be done in a timely manner. And I know we all agree on this. I know we want our constituents to get this information, to do the things that they need to do. We need to do what we need to do. We can't wait to bring those things in here. This is honestly not the forum for that. If I get an email, I feel sometimes bad about, you know, I'll tell, the chief can tell you, I call him up and I'm like, I feel like I'm passing the buck, but this is your world. So I give him that information. Or if I get an email from someone saying someone's speeding through, I get a lot of those, speeding through. I email it to chief and I CC Steve so that they get that information immediately. And I also let the people know, hey, call the chief. Or call the police department. There's a non-emergency number. Call the police department. Let them know what's going on, especially if it's something that's repetitive. You get the same car in the morning, and I've had that one over in Silver Peak. Same car in the morning coming by speeding every morning. Give them that information. Let them know what time those people come by so they can go set up and catch those people. And that's, I guess that's my main point, is reducing our time in here on those things and giving the staff the opportunity to do something timely. Give them the chance to operate in a timely manner. Forward that stuff immediately to them. Steve is your POC on this. He's the main point of contact. Forward that stuff to him. He will push that forward to the appropriate. Now, say you did that. Let's say you pushed it forward to the appropriate person. A couple weeks go by and you hear nothing. You email them again, hey, what's going on? You don't like the answer? Fine, bring it in here, bring it to the board, and then let's put it on and let's discuss it. But I think we spend too much time in here, and honestly, I don't like paying Maureen $200 an hour to come in here and sit. Okay, a little less than that. to listen to us bring up those things that, while they're not trivial, they shouldn't be in here. They should be dealt with immediately, put out there to the appropriate contact. So that's my one little spiel as far as before I'm done here. Just want to make sure that we can get this streamlined, get those things pushed out there sooner so that we're not bringing them here and wasting our time, wasting staff's time, and making staff look like, put them on the spot. Because then they've got to hurry up and make something happen, because it could have been up to as much as 2 to 3 weeks. So, and one other item. And Mr. Strzok, I just want to point out, you should be very careful. You put a sign up on the senior center that is a 501c3 for your race. You cannot do that.
For my what?
For your candidacy.
Oh, okay.
501c3 cannot endorse any people, so I just want to
They
make
made
sure.
a good point that they would put anybody's sign up there.
But they can't. They
Okay,
can't.
it's gone.
They can lose their 501c3 standing. So I just want to make sure you know that. So, anyway.
Can I say something else?
Go ahead.
It was kind of back to the water conservation. It would be nice if we could have a discussion about maybe our parks. Someone said once that all our towns are becoming over-parked. And so if you think about it, we spend a lot of money for watering all that grass in our parks, and so maybe we should reconsider what we require in our parks, and maybe we should use more natural grasses and more natural flowers in an effort to cut down our water consumption in all our future parks. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate that.
All right, with that, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Mayor, I forgot one thing I wanted to just chat with the board about a little bit. I think at the last board meeting, or maybe the meeting before, the issue came up with Mr. Antonoff's sign on his property and the fact that it was outdated, and we had a general conversation that we really don't regulate signs based on what's said, so even if it's advertising something that's not available, that's not an issue. We did we've had some communications with Mr. Antonoff where we are right now and got some pushback. He is willing to put a cover on the sign that says pad sites available, and I just wanted to take your temperature on that.
It's better than a big yellow Saturn
Okay, that's all
selling
I-
houses for $100,000.
Yeah. It's going to be halogen.
It's going to be neon and halogen just flashing.
She don't like the yellow, but
Okay.
they'll trump it.
And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:03.